with Mom. What's the date today? The 25th of July. We arrived in Nauvoo yesterday and went to a fireworks display and a fun pageant down on the Mississippi River, and now we're in front of the Lucy Mack Smith home. We've just come from the brick kiln over here, and Duncan's visiting with some people, and we all got our year 2000 Nauvoo brick. Look how beautiful all these flowers are. There's the 2000 Nauvoo brick.
The dishes up there do have a connection with the Smith family because they were given to Sister Smith's sister-in-law for a wedding gift in 1796.
1796?
Yep.
Wow.
And it's a service for 12 of English Chelsea lusterware, and it's complete except for one saucer.
Wow.
Being over 200 years old.
Now, is this the main bed in the house?
No, there's an upstairs with a large room over this room.
She was saying
two
that
tiny little bedrooms.
that Sister Smith had arthritis by this time when she lived here. Oh, this is fun.
Is.
This is the upstairs of the Lucy Mack Smith home.
I doubt that they're going to be doing much restoration for a while because of the temple and the cost of restoring the temple.
But the family, say if you had a family trust, let's say it would cost, $70,000, whatever it costs to.
I'll go through this again because I don't know if I recorded that or not. Or if I, who knows. Okay. Here are the steep stairs that we just went down.
That's what happened.
You would not want to take a... This is the little bedroom.
For sale. And so he bought it. And now the restoration bought the home. There was a two-story, four-room addition on this side, frame addition. And they'd made a door there where that window is. They blocked that door off entirely and put one here on this corner. They'd changed the stairway and had torn the fireplace out and put a stove there. And so there was quite a bit of restoration that had to be done to make it back the way it was in the 1840s. The little smokehouse had been torn down, but the rocks were all right there in a pile, and so they just used the same rocks and built it back up again. And I'd looked all over for authentic ones, and the only
All right, let's see the
really
shoes.
authentic ones I found were $80.
That is terrific. You know, some of the... Here's the Heber C. Kimball building. Duncan's doing a dance for us there. One of the most beautiful houses in Nauvoo.
Built by Heber C. Kimball. The home was purchased by his... You got somebody else just coming in? I'll wait until they join us.
That looks like it. It's the elder.
It's who?
One of the elders, I think.
Oh, the red car?
Yeah.
Plans, in his journal actually is a bedroom for his wife Violet. Dr. Kimball restored it as a study. Two items of interest here. This knob and that brass gas lamp holder. When he was vacationing in Prescott, England, they found out who he was and where he was from. That's where his great-great-grandfather did a lot of proselyting and got a lot of members. They gave him these to bring back here, which he thought were great. Now, the last thing that came from his home in Salt Lake is right there. This whatnot belonged to Heber C. Kimball. Feel pretty sure you want to go out and buy all those things, you never knew where to put them.
Now you've got a spot.
Now, in the 1850s, a convert came through, having been baptized in England, and came up the river from New Orleans. Oh, that's not accurate. A lot of inaccuracies in that, yeah. Yeah, that, what is it? Many beautiful things. Spinning wheel from the 1700s. Ride's trousseau box, also from the 1700s. And the two courting lamps here were very popular during the time. When the young man came calling, why, the courting lamps would be lit, and when they burned out, he would leave. So the father had some control over the situation by how much oil he put in the lamps.
Remember that, Don.
Now, this was the largest home here in Nauvoo. It has a full third story over here that has not been restored. Big.
So is it just a big room up there, or what is it?
Just it was bedrooms. Now, this was restored as a children's room. Low windows because the roof line was low on this side.
Now, was the stairway just put in for convenience of leaving, or just the way it was?
Yes, the way it was found. Now, this room here is interesting.
That interesting.
Mm-hmm.
This is as it was before Dr. Campbell bought it,
Ah,
Oh,
and they came to restore it. So we left one little original.
Look at this. It's like linoleum. They painted it.
yeah, that was really interesting.
Just filming all the drive slow.
okay. All right.
This is the path that I've come down into the old Nauvoo cemetery. Okay, there's the path I came down. Edward Partridge. Born 27th of August 1793, died in Nauvoo 27th of May 1840. And underneath it has DNC 41, 9, and 11. I have called my servant Edward Partridge, a bishop unto the church, and this because of his heart is pure before me, for he is like Nathanael of old, in whom there is no guile. Tanner Green, July 26, 1845. That's when he died. Isaac Blood, who died March 2nd, 1840, I believe. Memory of Hannah Webb, wife of James Webb. And the other one's right behind. Can't remember what it was. It seemed like it was 8. Yeah, there was a Hiram Barlow. There's 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got about 1/4 Deb. You got a tick?
For Nauvoo. It's never completed to its original design though. They only got up to about the middle of the 2nd story bricks and then kind of stopped construction on it. And Louis Bideman, who was Emma's 2nd husband, was responsible for kind of finishing up to the way it is today. And he and Emma ran that as a hotel for the last 10 years of her life. And actually, a few years after she died is when they removed the outside walls.
It's the Nauvoo house. This is from the Nauvoo house looking out south and west. You see parts of the Mississippi there. The original Nauvoo house didn't have that second floor. It's pretty hard to tell. Here's kind of a sketching of it.
So it came up and over the edge? It didn't come over, but it kind of seeped through from all sorts of animals and things that had been digging in the levee there. So they had to sandbag, gosh, up to like 4 feet to try to keep the water from getting into it. Actually, this whole area here was a kind of a sloped hill, and then in the mid-70s they added that levee to protect the house from the river. About here. So those 2 rooms is what the Smiths would have lived in when Emma and Joseph, when they were in the house. And the portion to the west actually was added on by Joseph III when he had his own family living in the house. Are there any questions about the house from far away before we go in? Okay, we'll go ahead and walk up here. Further down where the kind of the marshy land is, and there was a spring house over it, which was very similar to our Bees house. And in 1913 they built a dam in Keokuk, which caused the river to rise about 20 feet. The river is much higher than it was during that time frame. And with the river rising, a combination from June until the fall.
Everybody thought they were
In the cemetery uptown, that cemetery uptown no longer exists. They actually moved, relocated the cemetery uptown a little bit further, closer to where the Pioneer Cemetery is. And at that time they moved many of the Smith family members down here. No, the burial in the Nauvoo house, it was kind of said to be secret, but there were a couple dozen people that knew about it. And the burial under the Bees house, though, was how they would have mapped out the streets as well as the property lines. And this area down here was the business district. There was a barber shop right across the street. They had a match factory and rope walk further down, closer to Parley Street. If you look at the mansion house to the left of it, there's a light-colored home. That was Sidney Rigdon's house, which actually served as the post office for a time. And then straight through these trees is one of the first hotels built in Nauvoo. And right down this sidewalk is Joseph's Red Brick store, which he ran as a general store here in Nauvoo. And in between the cemetery and the general store, there was a millinery shop. Across the street there was another general store and a printing press, so this really was the center of town, of course.
We used this room as a room. So, 2-room log cabin, 1 room upstairs, we made an extra room, so we don't have. However, the church came, and of course it was also with the help of the Browns, because they donated a lot of money and art and so they took off the 3 windows, because that was in such bad repair, that room. However, this part of the house was pretty good. If people really did have this nice furniture, because they were here such a short time, it's period furniture, but they moved place to house to house. I really wondered if the furniture was this nice. I probably shouldn't say that.
No, that makes you wonderful. And yet they could afford glass windows. All those things, I bet it was. They always tried to do the best.
They did. They liked it nice. Anyway, Jonathan Browning was born in 1805 in Brushy Fork, Tennessee. That's the same year the prophet Joseph Smith was born. When he was 14, these 2 guns belonged to Jonathan Browning. This one he called a slide gun or a harmonica gun. The reason he called it a slide gun is because when the shots were fired, and this is what they looked like, he would, the bar would slide horizontally in the slot. This one has 3 shots. Jonathan felt that nobody should use more than five shots. That you were only going to protect your family with your gun or get food for your family. And 5 should be all anybody should have to use. However, if he were asked to do so, he would make it with as many as 25 shots. This one, he made with a revolving cylinder on it. But what the bustle oven is called from is the bustles that women wore on the back side of their dresses, I guess for style, is all I can figure. And so the brick does protrude out past the structure of the building. And they would come in the night before, they would soak this in water, and so that it wouldn't get burned when they put it on the door back. They would put wood from below into the bustle oven on the brick and fire it up like you would bonfire. And come in if you'd like. We're right in the middle. If you want to come in, you're welcome. You may join us because it's pretty warm up. Then they would take the ashes that were remaining, come right in. They take the ashes outside, put it in the ash copper, and then they would bleach the lye and use the lye for making soap. Use the ashes for probably fertilizer and all sorts of things. I don't know how they thought of all this creative stuff, but they did. Well, anyway, they put that in, and then when they cleaned out the ashes, then the oven was clean, they would take this instrument called a peel, and they would put cornmeal on it and sprinkle cornmeal all the way on the bottom of the oven. Cornmeal is used today as well as this instrument. The peel is used in the pizza places today, if you've seen that. Well, they would get that, as I say, hot. First thing they would do is break their bread because it took the hottest heat in the longest period of time. And so they would do that. Then they would go to cake, cookies, and crackers. And so they really had a job. It took a lot of time.
But they couldn't do it because, can you imagine all the mail that goes through if the post office had it taken right on their postage page on every one of those letters, so that didn't make sense either, did it? Did I tell you about the letter I did on the inside? Okay. They had to write like this because it was on one page only. Oh. And that's called cross writing.
What a great idea.
Right all the way down, and then they would turn it sideways and write that way. It is possible. If you study it, it is possible. because I've had several even today that's been able to do it. Now I can't because of my trifle. I've got to have some excuse.
But they've just written real small.
No, they can't do that because the
Oh,
ink's got to run together. And something when you're writing with the quill pen. So if you'll notice, most of the letters that you'll see around here are the larger print, or the larger writing because of the quill pen. But they did have the option of sending that, paying for that stamp, or sending it COD. And they would just write on it, postage due. So the people on the other side had the privilege of paying for that letter.
He gave $7 for his license, and he advertised that he had $700 worth of merchandise, and that he had cheap prices comparable to those in Cincinnati, Ohio. So they must have been really good prices, not meaning that his products were of cheap quality, but that they were affordable. Now, every third person who walked the streets of Nauvoo had an English accent. And some of those came from the Staffordshire area of England where they made fine china. Well, when they got to Nauvoo, they could no longer make that fine china. It wasn't the right kind of clay, but look what they were able to make. They didn't need the fine china anyway. They needed everyday wear. So these are all reproductions. One of those things was this canteen called a field canteen. And I don't know if you've seen anything like that before or not. It's made like a donut, and you kind of put it on your arm, and you could drink it. That's what one sister said, they just use it like that. Or there's places you can hang a string around you. Here's a old soap skimmer that's used to skim off this, when you're making soap, to skim the top, then you pour it out. Then you get a big kettle of boiling water, and you put your white things in there with some of that good lye soap, and you boil that till they're nice and white. Then you can use that skimmer to lift them out because you don't want to get too close to that fire, and you don't want to get burned. So you just lift those right out, hang them on the bushes or whatever for the sun to finish bleaching them out. Now, here's your cracker mold. There's even a waffle iron you could have. We've got shovels for you to dig your ditch that you need to drain your land, because the piece that you get might have some water standing in it. We've got all sizes of square nails up to great big spikes. Take a big hammer to hammer that in. Now, if there's anything here that you'd like to know what it is, I'd be glad.
He sold out, and the man in the Elias Smith, who had the print shop next door, was printing the Times and Seasons magazine there. And so they invited John Taylor to come over and live in this home and edit that magazine, because he was a very well-educated man. His real home, actual first home, was across here over on Harley Street, and there's a sign up over there that says that's where he lived. He didn't live in this home very long, maybe less than a year. Well, anyway, this chair and that saw back in the corner belonged to John Taylor, and the rest of the furnishings in the home were just put in here to make it look like what it might have looked like in those days. This is what they call a dry sink, meaning no running water in or out. Okay, this was the parlor. This is a picture of John Taylor right here. This is how he looked when he lived here. And this is his picture from his Salt Lake home when he was third president of the church. Yes, very, very handsome gentleman. Well, John Taylor was born in England in 1808, and the reason he got a good education, his parents were well-to-do, and then they moved to Toronto, Canada. And John Taylor later joined them there. He was in his early 20s when he went there. He met his wife there and married, and he was a Methodist minister practicing there in Toronto, Canada. This is where he met in it? Okay. Well, you can leave this room. You can probably stay right here if you want to take pictures.
Okay.
Was there somebody else?
Yes, there were two others. I don't know where they were.
Are they coming up, you think?
Did these two people over here exist at the time of John Taylor?
Yes, we did. Should we lay down on the bed?
Waiting for Duncan today.
Yeah, that's
I feel
a-
like we've been around since.
That's a wonderful bed over there, made of, the ropes held up the mattress, which was stuffed with straw. And they had a little quilt on the end of the bed that they wrapped around the roller there. They got cold in the middle of the night, they could just reach down and pull the quilt up over them. Well, this is the children. Belonged to the little boy that lived in his home. When they were getting ready to leave to go on their trip west, they couldn't take things like horses or toys, and they had to take the necessities that they could get in their wagons. Well, they were out 2 days into Iowa on their trip west when the little boy that owned that horse cried day and night, couldn't be consoled. And his father said, well, what's the matter? He said, well, I miss my little horse. So being the kind-hearted father that he was, he returned all the way, got the horse, took it back out on the wagon, and that horse went all the way to Salt Lake Valley on the wagon. Okay, can y'all get in here so you can see? Well, this was John, Portland, Oregon.
Okay.
Salt Lake.
Salt Lake, all right. Happy to have you here. This is not a long tour, but we'll get going. These are just letters that we print. These are the same size letters that we're going to be talking about today. So when you feel one, you can. Want to feel it? The reason I'm letting you feel it, for you guys that aren't up here, they have little grooves in them. And the printer, the guy that's doing the composing, all he has to do, he already knows what the letter says. All he wants to know is which way are they facing, so he feels little grooves in there, and he can place them in his copy that way, all right? Okay, now I'm going to show you what this is. This is a composing stick. And this, I'm going to show you how they started doing a newspaper. Over here are the print. All of these are the uppercase letters. These are the lowercase. You know what that means? They originated in the newspaper business. Okay, the most frequently used letter in the alphabet.
The printing office, time and seasons, Nauvoo neighborhood. John Taylor's house. Next, John Taylor is the post office. There's Mom and Deb. The Browning, Jonathan Browning home and gift shop, and gun shop, excuse me. Green cars, the one we've been driving for days. And over here we have the tin shop. Tin shop, that's the presentation we went there. This is the, who? This is Brigham Young. Oh, I know he's Brigham Young, was it?
All right.
It's Brigham Young.
It goes up and down.
Yeah.
Where was the elevator?
At the Fairfield and
Fairfield,
Keokuk.
yeah. Oh, in Keokuk.
Goes up and down and sideways too.
Oh, really?
Depending on what you're holding in your hands.
Sounds like a fun thing. Anyway, I was just explaining that when the Saints first moved here, that Brigham settled his family across the river first, and then they moved over here to this part to carry the baby. And then the rail can be lifted off once the baby's asleep and move it to its bed. But I think I would have loved to have something like that when I was raising my kids. So I think it's pretty neat. The little tiny stove over there is called a 4 o'clock stove. It was used in the wintertime when they keep the doors closed and it was warm in the main part of the house. At 4 o'clock they would bring some coals from the fire, put them in that little heater over there so it could take the chill off the room before they went to bed. So they were called 4 o'clock stoves. For that reason. All the rest of this you covered. So all over the place. This is kind of different. I've never seen a crochet cover over the chamber pot. We'll step into this room here. I'll talk about this a little bit. As I said, the main part of the house was only 16 by 22 feet. So from this wall to that wall, and from the fireplace to the front door, that was it. There was, behind you is a small office area that I imagine that Brigham Young, that they've glued them back together. It's interesting what people will throw away, huh?
Well, I
But
think
if
I
they were-
understand
if
as
they
they
were-
were leaving. That was a hiding.
Not only that,
Well, but see, they weren't coming back, so.
not only that, this is my daughter, and I say, oh, I used to have one. What did you do with it? And I said, when I got something new, I was so glad to get rid of it, I threw it away.
See?
So, see, we
Yeah,
don't know
we don't
that.
value at that time.
Yeah.
And what they were able to take with them.
Yeah,
You know,
it's
maybe they
very
just,
little.
I mean, being a woman, maybe I would say, well, I'm not gonna let anybody else have my dishes.
Well,
Room in the
yeah,
garbage.
and they knew who was gonna come in here and take all their property
Oh,
and
yeah.
everything, and rather than
Exactly.
to the scavengers.
You can come sit down, there's another bench over here, it's got bad foot,
Want to sit down? Go ahead.
That's okay. This is the room we call a council room. At the time that Joseph and Hiram were in the Carthage jail and at the martyrdom, Brigham was serving a short mission in the eastern states, and he was gone. He wasn't around here at that time, or he probably would have been with them in the jail and been killed too. So it's interesting how things work out. When he was there, he had no way of knowing what was going on back here because the mobs had stopped the mail. There was no mail coming in and no mail going out.
And everything. Honey, you've really, honestly, you've got us in everything. Hey, I know. Let me switch you places. I will take movies of you coming. Here we go. This is a better deal. Yeah, they're beautiful.
Yeah, around my well.
Recording when I grabbed it.
I turned it on, I was filming you coming.
Oh, well, I'd rather film for a minute. This is the back of Brigham Young's house.
There was a, looks like a window there one time.
That's the bus 11.
Still works.
Isn't there, Deb?
What?
I told him there's a fine for anybody that pushes their mother-in-law down it.
That's right. Is there one for pushing husbands in?
Well, no, I think that's allowable.
Now, what would this be? This would be the potato or the root cellar? Would that be the root cellar?
Probably
probably some kind of number that it's.
I didn't block car, do I?
I hope so.
Oh, I think we'll. This is a Sarah Granger Kimball home. As you can look, way up there, you can see the crane and the steeple. Hello, how you doing?
We're sure glad to have you come and visit us. This is the Sarah Granger Kimball home, and so this home was here before the Saints got here in 1839, because it was built in about 1833. This is one of the two homes here when the Saints got here. This home and then the log cabin that the prophet Joseph Smith lived in at the end of Main Street that we don't even own were the two of the 8 of the 10, 2 of the 8. Okay, 2 of them.
What, honey?
Oh, we want you to turn around. Smile, you're on candid camera.
Wait.
Now, should we show our legs like the gal on the candid camera?
No.
I like that, but I...
And they got the yellow limestone from a quarry about 4.5 miles from here. Now, at the time that it was a jail, it was also the residence for the jailer and his family. Now, Mr. George Stiegel and his wife and 7 children lived here during that time. The upper window there, that's the attic. Now, that's where the young children went to bed each night, was upstairs. On the right here, we have one of the cells. This is a debtor's cell. Midway out, you see the slats in the rocks. That's the dungeon cell. So there was 2 cells in the jail. The walls down on the lower level, they're about 3 feet thick down on the lower level. Midway up, they narrow down to 2 feet thick. But it is a sturdy build old jail. Now, it served as a jail for about 25 years. And then it was sold at auction, and a Peterson family bought it, lived here about 5 years. They sold it to a Browning family. They lived here about 30 years. Then the church bought it in 1903. But it wasn't until 1938 that they started to restore it and turn it into a historical site. This little add-on is a summer kitchen. Now, Mrs. Stiegel could take and cook in there and prepare meals, open a window and a door and get some ventilation and not have to prepare in the old jail in the fireplace in the kitchen parlor. Now, part of the role of the jailer's family was to provide services for the prisoners. And if they could afford to pay for the services, then they would do so. John Taylor's diary recorded that they ate their meals in the dining room and he paid for them. So that's kind of an interesting thing, a different switch than what we have in our society and our incarceration system today. When you walk through the summer kitchen and the dining room, the furnishings in there are all just period furnishings, not of anything that was of the definite time. But we'll walk through those two and then we'll meet you in the kitchen parlor here. Follow me.
Let's see.
Are you the last one? Okay, well, have all of you come in so everyone can see into here, okay? Okay, this then is the kitchen parlor of the old jail. The flooring in here is the original flooring. Some of the window panes and the window casings are original. We have here the fireplace where Mrs. Stiegel would have prepared many meals. A bed in the kitchen parlor was typical. That provided family and friends traveling through to be able to stop by and spend the night. A table here was where she was preparing a meal the night that the mob came through the door here. This is the front of the jail, and there's a door here to the south. The night the mob came in, they came through that door, up the stairs, into the martyrdom room, and that's directly above us. She was here at the table preparing an evening meal. Bullets flew around her, and she went out the door and into a cornfield. Now, there's no record of Mr. Stiegel or the children. But there's also a record that Mr. Stiegel had been here a short time prior to this talking with Joseph and Hart. So I feel that he was somewhere close by. Now, we'll do a little history again. I mentioned this when we were in the picture room looking at the one painting. Joseph and Hiram and the entire city council, they're under arrest for the charge of rioting for damaging the Nauvoo expositor. And so when they get here to Carthage, it's on it's after midnight on the 24th. And so they spend that first night at the Hamilton house. And they are also, that's where Governor Ford is staying. Now, they've requested that Governor Ford come to Carthage to try to help settle some of the unrest that's in these small towns. We have Carthage, and it's here, there's less than 500 people. If you went down the road to Warsaw, there was less than 500. If you went north on a triangle from either direction, that was Nauvoo, and that was over 10,000. So you could kind of get a feel for why they felt politically threatened. There's a lot of anti-Mormon hatred and feelings that's developed. Thomas Sharp is the editor of the Warsaw Signal. He's printed the newspaper and had a lot of lies and untruths about the Mormons. These people read it. They don't know what's truth, what's not truth. They don't know Joseph. They don't understand the Mormons and the religion. And up at Nauvoo, then they printed that paper, the Nauvoo Expositor, and there was a lot of lies about the women and the children in that. Now they're all upset. So when you realize that, there's a lot of turmoil and unrest in these communities, they felt that if Governor Ford came here, he would be the one with the authority to be able to put some of this feelings to rest, and that people would be feel more secure and not feel so threatened, because there's many threats that's been made against the people as well. So when they arrive then, they spend that first night at the Hamilton house. The next day, they meet with Governor Ford. Now, they were able to raise $7,500. That was enough to pay a $500 bail for each of the city council for the charge of rioting. So now they don't have to come to jail on the charge of rioting. But before they're dismissed, there's another warrant issued for the arrest of Joseph and Hiram. and that was for treason. And they could not pay a bail for treason. The treason was a charge that stemmed from the Nauvoo Legion and the martial law that had been, that they ordered there. So when they come to jail, then there's Joseph and Hiram that's under arrest, but the 8 other men come with them. Now they're not under arrest. They have passes from the governor that allows them to come in and out of the jail. But Governor Ford assigns the Carthage Greys to be the guards and the protection for the prisoners. Well, that's a farce. They're totally anti-Mormon. And when you realize that that's, what Governor Ford assigned as a protection, you can put that one down as a black mark on our history of some justice for that period. Now, the Carthage Greys, they controlled who came in and who went out of the jail. Their guns were loaded with blanks. They basically, didn't have any, when they shot that night, they were just shooting blanks, so there was no harm done to the, the mob that they shot at. There's a bar that could have been put across the door, but that was never put into place. And so there's no resistance at all. So when they take and they enter, then they basically, just straight up the stairs and into the, where the Joseph and Hiram and the others were. Now, the stairs, we're going to go out here and we'll go into the debtor's cell. When you go in there, just in your mind think, this is where 10 full-grown men slept. Now, all they had is some straw on the floor for matting. They had a bucket in the corner for sanitation. They had a bucket for a drink of water. So there was no real, comforts in there. Well, they spend then the night of June the 25th in the debtor's cell. And then the next day, Mr. Stiegel feels that they're really not safe in there either. He felt they would be safer in their bedroom. So he has them go upstairs and take their bedroom, and then Mr. and Mrs. Stiegel comes down and they sleep in a bed here in the kitchen parlor, and then the Stiegel's bedroom becomes the martyrdom room. Now as we go up the stairs are original. The hand railing on the right is original. The door frame is original, but the door is not. So you can see there's a lot of still old parts of the jail that's here. They tell us if we had a tornado warning, we could come here to the jail. Now this is, they say it's lasted through several tornadoes over these years. So like I say, when we go, we'll have you just walk through and then come back at that point in time. Here's the old storehead. We've got so much time. Or a horse thief, then they were put into here and would have been shackled. But over in the corner, you can see an old straw mattress. Well, the night that Joseph and Hiram were killed, John Taylor was shot in the head. And he was severely wounded. Well, Willard Richards drugged John Taylor from the martyrdom room into the dungeon cell here and hid him under an old straw mattress. Sorry. They told him, and Willard Richards said, John, you need to survive and be a witness for the things that have transpired here. Now, Willard Richards really thought the mob would return and kill him. He was a big man, about 300 pounds. When you consider that there's between 100 and 200 men in a mob state, and he survived. That's a miracle. But there was a prophecy given a year prior to this in behalf of Willard Richards. He was the prophet's scribe. And one night he was writing, and he said the prophet came and stood by him, put his hands on his shoulder, and he said, Willard, the day will come when bullets will fly around you like hail. Your friends will fall to the right and the left of you, but you'll not receive a ball to the garment. He got a slight graze on the left ear. Now, when you think about the night and you realize these two men survived, you recognize the Heavenly Father's hand here. Willard Richards becomes the third president of the church. Let's go, or John Taylor. Fell from is the window to the east. He fell through the window or out the window, landing down by the old wooden well. The flooring in here is original also, and the door here is original. Now, the night of June the 26th, and there's 7 men that sleep up here. Joseph and Harm, had been asleep in the bed. Around midnight, there were some shots and commotion outside, and so the prophet got up and looked out the windows to see what was going on. And upon returning, instead of getting back into bed, he just laid down on the floor by the other men. And one of them was John Fulmer. And he said, John, why don't you lay on my arm? You'd be more comfortable than just laying on the old hard floor. Well, that's a testimony to me of the kind of a man that the prophet Joseph Smith was. You know, even under these trying circumstances, here he is, still caring and concerned about other people's comfort and their needs and their well-being. Another one was Dan Jones. Now, that night, the prophet realized that Dan was not sleeping either. And he said, Dan, are you afraid to die? And Dan Jones said, is it coming to that, Joseph? And Joseph said, well, not for you, Dan. You'll live to return to your native Wales and bring many people into the church. Dan Jones was a great missionary. Returned to Wales on 2 occasions. First time he baptized 3,600. His second mission was 2,000. That's a great missionary. President Hinckley used him as an example of missionary work in talking to the Mission President Seminar this past month. Another one here was Stephen Markham. Now, on the 27th after lunch, Willard Richards had a stomachache. And so the prophet asked Stephen Markham to go get some medicine for him. Upon returning, the Carthage Greys refused to let him back in. They had bayonets on their guns, and as he went by, they cut his legs with those bayonets, and when he got back to Nauvoo, his boots were full of blood. Now, we have a tape that we play. It's a 4-minute tape. It describes the afternoon and the happenings. And then if you've got any questions after that, feel free to ask.
June 27, 1844, dawned cloudy and wet in Carthage. By mid-morning, the air was hot and humid. The prisoners received a few visitors. They also read, conversed, and wrote letters. Joseph wrote to his wife.
Dear Emma, I am very much resigned to my lot, knowing I am justified and have done the best that could be done. Give my love to the children and all my friends, and may God bless you all.
By afternoon, the mood grew somber. Joseph asked John Taylor to sing a favorite hymn. A poor wayfaring man of grief hath often crossed me on my way, who stood so humbly for had not power to ask his name, whereto he went, or whence he came. Yet there was something in his eye that won my love, I knew not why. About 5 p.m. on that hot, sultry afternoon, a large group of armed men, some with faces blackened to disguise their identity, headed for the jail. The prisoners hurriedly closed the door and tried to hold it shut. Members of the mob fired into the door. The first shot grazed the lock. A second came through the door, striking Hiram in the face and killing him almost instantly. A hail of bullets whizzed through the air as the door was forced ajar. John Taylor tried to push away the rifles with his walking stick. Then he stepped back toward the window. He was struck in the hip by a bullet. Another ball from outside struck his watch, knocking him back into the room, onto the floor, and almost under the bed. Joseph also started for the window. 2 bullets from outside struck him in the chest. 2 other bullets hit him in the back. He plunged through the window to the ground below, mortally wounded. When Joseph fell, the mob rushed downstairs to see if he was dead. Willard Richards ran to the window and looked down at the prophet's body. As he turned to leave the room, he heard a gasp. "Take me with you." He pulled the wounded John Taylor from under the bed and hid him in the dungeon cell, thinking the mob would probably return. Outside, someone yelled, "The Mormons are coming!" The mob turned and fled. By morning, many of the townspeople had also fled, fearing vengeance for the death of Joseph and Hiram. But the warning shout and the fear it expressed were unfounded. The vengeance never came. The Latter-day Saints were stunned. Joseph and Hiram were gone. John Taylor and Willard Richards survived to bear this witness.
Joseph lived great, and he died great in the eyes of God and his people. And like most of the Lord's anointed in ancient times, has sealed his mission and his works with his own blood. And so has his brother Hiram. In life they were not divided, and in death they were not separated.
I'd take a minute at this time and bury my testimony. I know that Joseph Smith was a prophet of God. And I know that he had been foreordained to be the prophet to restore the gospel of Jesus Christ to the earth. And Joseph and Hiram died a martyr's death for the gospel's sake. And today we're the benefactors of this great gospel, which is here to help us in our journey as we travel along the road of life. He wrote to his wife Emma and he said, "I've done my best." Now if we think about life, that's the purpose of our life, is to do our best and to do the things that will help us to return to live with Heavenly Father. The gospel of Jesus Christ is here to help us in our journey with its teachings and commandments. We've got a living prophet today. And so when we think about Carthage and Joseph and Hiram and the price that they paid and what we have to enjoy today, we owe these men a large debt of gratitude. And I hope that your testimony of these men will be strengthened as you visit here, and that your love for them will be strengthened as well. And in turn, that we'll all strive harder to keep the commandments, to do the things that we need to be doing so that we're progressing and growing as we journey along life's path. I know that the gospel of Jesus Christ is true, and how grateful I am for the blessing it is in my life, and I have learned to love and appreciate these great men, and I say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Got any questions? It's no longer standing. It was about 3 blocks from here. Over across the street from the post office, I think they said. It does, yes. Where's this, is this
Oh, no problem. This is the old Nauvoo cemetery. The records tell us that Anthony Head was buried here. That he died at what age, Mom? 56. 56 from the fever and chills. He was the father of Sarah Head, who married Levi Bracken, who also lived here. Anthony Head owned property down in the old city of Nauvoo. And died here, was buried here. Did they say how many people were buried out here?
I don't think so.
Hi.
How are you today?
Good.
I'm Sister Oaks from Farmington, Utah. Where are you folks from?
Layton, Utah, and Taylorsville.
Oh. I have a daughter that lives in Layton. Okay.
But don't
Hi.
tell her, I'll be
I
back
won't.
Saturday and I'll...
Hi, Amy and Craig. Your bishop's here. He's taking a picture of me. I miss you and love you. Hi, kids.
Okay, ready? 1, 5.
We go and go back over there and get it.
Is it working out?
Yeah. That's odd.
Doesn't it feel soft?
Yeah, I like to work on this. This is the Patty Sessions cabin. We had to come in here because this is Jewel Caldwell's great grandma. Okay.
This better stay up here.
Oh. Yeah, probably. Think up on there. Patty Sessions garden with the Patty Sessions cabin. There's the chicken coop. There's the privy. Excited to see you.
Well, we're gonna see how many pounds I get.
Tell her to all, you wear 3 slips.
Yeah, 3 slips. I teach the kids how to tie quilt.
And then you have people, the stitching's not too bad on there. We were looking at it yesterday.
You know, anybody.
She takes out the bad stuff.
Oh, really?
Well, you might as well, before you leave, put
Leave your mark.
Well, all right.
Oh, son.
Yeah.
Come and sit, you'll like it. Okay, come and sit down. Sit down like this.
I don't know.
These are 2 quilts.
How do you get a trip without all your kids?
He's building it. I'm glad
You brought my mother.
Did you bring them?
No, we brought them, we came in '97, brought all the kids. Of course, there've been so many changes and new things
Oh,
added.
yeah.
But this time it's my mother's turn.
Everybody's gone to lunch. Well, they've gone, but the people, what time is it anyway?
Where do they go eat?
used to all be
Ranger 6?
Ranger 6. Yeah, you were part of it.
So where are you missionaries?
We were at Tennessee Nashville Mission.
Tennessee? Just coming through.
Coming through on our way home.
Oh, how fun.
All right.
Our grandchildren dying to see it.
Oh, yes, they probably wonder why we didn't rush right.
Stop and look at things.
Want me to just get started on one till Lauren got going?
I don't know if I can.
Lori sent us 2 herbs.
Two of our photons.
But Jane looked at them, they were so nice, she's not gonna bring them over.
Because there's two nice.
She's gonna take them back. Oh, there.
That's for Lori and Steve and the family, so you can see where Lori's mom and dad work at. It's a cultural hall. So it's a little different stone. It's a brick building, but with a stone on the front. A little panoramic view. Bakery.
Well, welcome to the Wilfred Woodruff home. I'm Sister Lovelace from Orange, Texas. The Wilfred Woodruff home is the best example of Federalist art. And when they moved in here, it wasn't quite finished. 2 rooms had been plastered and painted, but they still needed to do the plastering and painting on the rest of the house. Well, they moved in anyway with the intention of finishing it after they moved in. Well, as luck would have it, 2 months later, he was called on another mission to England.
On a horseshoe bend of the Mississippi, we found a friend. Stopped our flight, found a sight, with widow's might, bought the right to commerce. A swampy land of brush and trees, mosquitoes, disease. We drained it, reclaimed it, maintained it, renamed it. By the year 41, population grew. 11,000 by the year 42. The Scots came. The Danes came. The Welsh came. The Saints came.
Hands with canning, hands with bread.
Hands with clay, hands with cement, hands with glass, hands with paint, hands with hoes, hands with weeds, hands with plows, hands with seeds.
How do you build a city? How big a city inside? How do you build a city? You build it with your hands. With your hands, with your hands, with your heart, with your hands, with your hands, with your hands, with your family, with your hands, with the Lord, with the Lord, with the Lord, with the Lord, with the
Quite quickly, you'll see